Good morning to everybody except for Kyle Pitts. In today's video, we're going to be talking through some of the most hyped up training camp storylines so far this summer. All right. We are about to enter August and training camp is in full go. The pads are on, the practices are happening, which means we are able to tap into some of the best beat reporters in the industry and really get an inside look about what's happening in camp. And thus, all the beat reporters are starting to throw things out on Twitter about certain players. And we are now adjusting the ranks, but we are not adjusting the ranks based on every report that comes out. So I'm going to try to do my best to be the middleman for y'all because you're going to hear so much stuff throughout training camp, so much coach speak. So I'm going to go through some of the top storylines that we've been hearing, and I'm going to let you know whether or not I'm adjusting guys in the rankings because of it. We have some big movers, we have some small movers, we have some non-movers. I will say the single best thing that you can do around this time of the year is to just follow the beat reporters, especially from accredited sources like The Athletic. I would definitely go follow their podcast. They always get the top of the line beat reporters that come onto their podcast and really give you an inside look about what's going on in the camp. I genuinely think listening to real football people is the way to go at this time of the year, and not people that are just regurgitating yards per route run over and over and over again to you. Way more helpful to actually know what the injury status of this player is. Are we worried about this guy or that guy? Where are the snaps going in 2-minute drills and things like that? And that's what you can get from real life football people. All right. So we tap into those types of sources, and that's what we're doing today. We're going to start very top of this list with Terry McLaurin. Now, he's gone from a holdout to a hold-in. He wants a new contract. Washington is hesitant to give it to him because he is getting older in age. He wanted to get paid like DK Metcalf, but then we just had Courtland Sutton get paid around $23 million a year, which is probably going to be the best argument for Washington now, saying, hey, you need to, come back down to earth. You're a little bit older. You're not DK Metcalf's age. So you need to take something in between. And where this affects fantasy is we've seen receivers over the last few years start slow when they hold out and when they're not in practice and when they're not up to shape and practicing in the system and with their quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit disheartening, one, because Terry's such a likable player, and I wanted to fade of Terry McLaurin. Everybody wants to fade Terry McLaurin because of the touchdown total that he had last year, and there's just no way that he could actually be a wide receiver one again because he had too many touchdowns. I'm like, that feels like a player I'd like to buy into. He's a clear alpha in an offense with a very, very good quarterback that they just nailed their top 5 scoring offense regardless. So I wanted to fade that while he was starting to be pushed outside of the top 15, but it's hard to ignore the wide receivers over the last couple of years, whether you look at CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Ayuk, and these guys who hold out all throughout summer and then start off very slow. And it also ramps up their injury risk, especially early on in the season for things like hamstring pulls and just muscle strains and stuff like that. So I will say this is a little bit disheartening the longer that Terry holds out. I do think they get something done. I think they're probably going to have to meet in the middle of those two contracts, but Terry is not really a top 12 guy for me anymore. I think I've moved him down to the wide receiver 16-ish at this point. And listen, we've seen Jamar Chase held out for most of last summer and then obviously became the GOAT last year. So none of this stuff is black and white. You kind of just throw different data points on the spectrum and adjust accordingly. And that's what we're doing in our rankings. Speaking of Terry being at the wide receiver 16, you are watching this on July 31st, which means August 1st is tomorrow, which means our draft guide officially goes live tomorrow. You have one more day to get it at extremely discounted pre-order pricing, or the entire summer to get it through our partner, which is even more discounted. All right. So the cheapest way to get it by far is just going through our partner page, which will be the first link down below. It has all of our rankings for every league type. It's got write-ups and basically the way I feel about every single player for fantasy going into the year. It's got our must-draft players, our entire fade list, our favorite targets round by round, our favorite sleepers after the 10th round. All that kind of stuff will be in there for you. It's exactly what you need for your fantasy football draft to dominate. It's interactive. You can mark players getting drafted off as you're in the middle of your drafts. It'll be updated throughout the entire summer, all right? So go through our partner page for an extremely discounted price. If you don't qualify for that, then you could still get it at a pre-order price until tomorrow. But it goes live tomorrow, and I'm hyped for y'all to see it. Next player, we're actually going to stay within Washington, and this list is just going to bounce off a bunch of different players here. So it's not necessarily best players to worst, just players that I'm hearing a lot of hype coming from. And we're staying in Washington, and we're moving to the backfield. Jacory, croskey-merritt. Now, I've been talking about Brian Robinson a lot recently, and I see a lot of comments about, go check out Jacory, croskey-merritt. And I do deep dives on rookies all the time on the Dynasty channel. If you're more interested in, watching tape, watching film, and diving into the deep rookie class, I've been talking about Jacory, croskey-merritt since, I want to say the first video I mentioned him in was probably right after the NFL draft. So he's very much on my radar. But I think for a 7th rounder to really start to to make noise. Like, you have to start hearing the beat reporters drum up, hey, this guy's getting runs with the twos, he's getting runs with the ones, and seeing their 53-man roster projections putting a dude like this on there. And apparently he's been very impressive in camp so far. Jacory croskey-merritt was Washington's 7th round pick this year. Good athlete. He's a little bit older, came in at 24 years old, played 4 years at Alabama State, transferred to New Mexico where he broke out. Transferred to Arizona, had a huge week 1, and then got suspended for the rest of the year for ineligibility issues or eligibility issues, whatever. But when we're looking at what he is as a runner, he is a very, very good runner, and the reports have been that he's running with the ones every now and then, right? It's Brian Robinson's job still, and I'm still very much targeting B-Rob as, you know, a late round running back, round 7, 8, 9, to be a guy who could score a lot of touchdowns in a high upside offense. But Jacory croskey-merritt, and this is a late round best ball pick. This is a dynasty stash if he's still on your waiver wire. This is a guy to just like keep in your mind, because I do believe the hype about this kid. His numbers in his last full year in 2023 when he played at New Mexico: 93rd percentile in terms of missed tackles forced per attempt, 34%. 91st percentile in 10-plus yard run rate and 15-plus yard run rate. Overall elusive rating, 11th among 145 qualified backs. Pass block rate in the 78th percentile. Yards after contact per attempt in the 85th percentile. So this is a dude who is clearly shifty, is clearly elusive, looks really good on film. He is springy. He could be a guy who eats into some carries. And again, I don't necessarily know that he's going to make an impact in redraft, but at times last year, you know, you're looking at the Jeremy McNichols, you're looking at the Chris Rodriguez's. This is more for deeper leagues for sure, but I'm just going through guys that I am buying the hype into during training camp. And we'll move to another backup running back here out in New York, and that is Braelon Allen. He is getting incredible hype so far as, you know, the backup to Breece Hall. And I am buying this because Braelon Allen, I think, was really good. If you just watched him play football last year, didn't end up getting like a huge role down the stretch. I think he wore out a little bit. But you got to remember, Braelon Allen was quite literally the youngest player in the NFL last year. He came in at 20 years old, and he had a certified stud in Breece Hall above him in the depth chart. But you've got Aaron Glenn coming over, as well as the new OC coming over from Detroit as well, and they are very much putting their stamp on the fact that they plan on using this as a committee backfield, with Breece Hall serving as that Jahmyr Gibbs role and David Montgomery being Braelon Allen in New York. What that actually means in terms of fantasy production, I'm not sure, because like how many scoring opportunities are they really going to have there? But I very much believe that this is going to be a committee where Braelon Allen probably takes 40% of the carries in this backfield. Maybe it's somewhere like Breece Hall at like 46%, Braelon Allen at 40%. The rest are divvied up between like Isaiah Davis and another random runner. But I do think Braelon Allen's going to be very, very involved. And if something were to happen to Breece Hall, like he's going to be obviously one of the top waiver wire pickups. So I think when you're looking at that grouping of handcuffs, when you have Braelon Allen and Garendo together and Trey Benson and like the Jalen Wrights of the world, Allen is one of the top guys for me, and Ray Davis and stuff like that. I am looking at Allen because I believe he's a really good player. Another really good player dealing with some back issues. That's Matthew Stafford here out in LA. He is not in training camp, not participating because of some back issues right now. From what I've gathered, listening to a bunch of podcasts from Rams beat reporters, McVay seems not concerned. Like, they don't actually have a ton of concern with this. Stafford's been dealing with back issues since like 2017 or 2018. And yes, he's had chunks where he's missed time because of it. But from what I'm hearing inside the building, they genuinely are not overly concerned with this. So honestly, I would be buying the dip on a guy like Puka if he starts going at the 112, 201, 202 because of this Stafford back news. I do think if we get into later August and he's not playing at all, or he's not participating in the practice scrimmages, he's not getting on the field at all, I'll start to get a little bit more suspect with it. But for right now, I won't overanalyze the back issue right now. Obviously, you know, it adds a weird little, knot in your stomach when you see it. If you are a Puka owner, if you have been drafting Devontae Adams pretty heavily, Kyren Williams is obviously going to take a major hit. A lot of his fantasy value comes from the fact that this team gets inside the 5-yard line often, and he always gets those goal line carries. So if Stafford's not playing, of course, like you do have to factor in a little bit of risk here, but I don't want to overhype it just because the headlines of like, oh, his back's fucked up is going to be a problem. One player whose injury is very odd right now, and I do think will affect the rankings, is Joe Mixon. I've actually moved Joe Mixon down to like running back 28, 29 in my rankings because of this odd foot lower leg injury that he's dealing with. Apparently, he like re-suffered a foot injury, which he hurt twice last year, not participating in training camp. They're saying that he's like, they hope he could be ready for week 1. I don't know. Weird vibes out there in Houston for Joe Mixon. He's obviously on the much older side of things as it relates to the running back position right now. was great to start the year. And then, he suffered the injuries and cooled down the stretch. They also have arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL. They're going to be a lot more pass heavy with John Morton coming over from the LA Rams system. So Mixon is weird. You got Woody Marks behind him as a pass catching specialist out of USC. They obviously signed Nick Chubb. I don't know that I really want to invest in this backfield at all. And I think this might just be like a very, very high volume passing game. So like Nico Collins as my guy. Another injury, Isaiah Likely, broken foot. I think there's a chance that he could end up starting the year on the PUP. I haven't heard much about that, but I do think we're getting dangerously close. This feels like a 6-ish week recovery timetable. Could be a little bit longer if it lingers. So I think there's a real chance he starts on the PUP. I think there's a real chance that he misses week 1 or week 2 or whatever. And if that's the case, right, and he's coming off of like a broken foot, and that's something that he can't really recover from until the second half of 2025 or whatnot, like Mark Andrews obviously gets a huge boost. So regardless of early on in the summer, I was like, I'm off of Mark Andrews. I'm off of Travis Kelce. They are old. They're past that age cliff. They were ultra not productive last year outside of Andrews just scoring a lot of touchdown. All their efficiency numbers kind of dipped. I was out on them, but now you're kind of force-fed volume. Like there's no way around not projecting both of them with Rashee Rice likely out and suspended, Isaiah Likely possibly missing games. Like the offense has to run a little bit through them. So Isaiah Likely being out does move Mark Andrews up to, I think, my tight end 6 spot right now. And again, all my rankings will be updated throughout the entire summer, basically in real time. After every preseason weekend as well, I will be giving you guys full write-ups of like the snap counts that I think are really important for you to know who's running in the slot, who's running in 2 wide receiver sets, who's running in 2 and 4 minute drills out of the backfield. That's an exclusive article that will only go up in the draft guide. Again, the cheapest price to get it will be through our partner page on our website. It has instructions on what to do down there. First, linky poo. So let's move over to the Chargers. We got 2 players on this list. I mean, Omarion Hampton, their first round pick, and it's nothing that I think he's done, but the Najee Harris like firework thing from July 4th, it's hard to know what to think. Like we've gotten no concrete news, nothing real. We got like a picture surfacing of Najee Harris being at practice. He's like fully masked up, like he's about to rob a fucking bank. So I don't know what's going on there. If he like lost a fucking eyeball, and they're not telling us right now, but nothing is emerging from there. And listen, if he continues to just miss all of training camp, Omarion Hampton is going to get so comfortable running with the starters and running with Justin Herbert and learning this scheme. And it's like, yes, he's a rookie, but Najee Harris is also new here as well. So he has to learn a new scheme too. So it's not like he's a rookie, of course, but like when you make your way into a new offense and going from Arthur Smith's complex run scheme, I know people give him shit, but he's got a very, very successful complex run scheme. Greg Roman, same way probably. I don't think that's an easy run scheme to learn. So Najee missing all this practice time, like Omarion Hampton, they're going to have no choice but to give him, that RB1 kind of workhorse role out the gate. And there's like nowhere that feels too high for Hampton. He has moved into my RB12 spot. So he is, for me, a legit back-end top 12 guy for me, which makes me feel a lot more comfortable drafting at the end of round 3. Where like, I love that back-end turn. If you're drafting in a 1 quarterback league and you have like the 111, 112, and you're able to double tap like, Nico Collins and BTJ or, Malik Neighbors or Puka and Devon Achane. And at the end of the 3rd round, I was like, I don't know that I love any of the picks here, but if Hampton is going to continuously go around there, smash pick. The other Charger that I wanted to briefly touch on is Keandre Lambert-Smith. He was a 5th round rookie out of Auburn. A little bit of a slighter frame, but has a similar play style to Mike Williams, who just retired. Lambert-Smith has been making plays pretty much daily, consistently at training camp. Trey Harris was missing some time with the contract dispute. He has signed, so he's back at practice right now. But Lambert-Smith is legitimately fighting for like one of the top 3 roles in this offense. Obviously, Ladd is there, but then it's like Quentin Johnson, Trey Harris, and Lambert-Smith. He has blazing speed. He could beat press. He makes some great like high point catches down the field, very much like Mike Williams. I don't think he could do everything, but I think he's a good complement to what Herbert offers in this passing game and his explosive arm down the field. So he's a dude, again, very end of best ball drafts, maybe dynasty waiver wire if he's available. Sticking with that same type beat, Deontay Thornton. It is the most difficult name to say. Like you want to say Thornton, but then there's just an N between the R and the T here. Deontay Thornton out of Las Vegas, wide receiver. Apparently, he is running as the pure X wide receiver with the starters. And right now, it is a battle between Trey Tucker and Jack Besh for that number 3 Y flanker-ish type of role. Deontay Thornton. I'm going to call him DT from now on. Rest in peace to the real GOAT DT. DT, 6'5", 205, ran a 4.30 flat. 6'5", a 4.30 flat. A little bit of a weird like box score in college. He started at Oregon, transferred to Tennessee. He never had more than 26 catches in a single season in college. He played 4 college seasons. Last year at Tennessee was his highest catch total with just 26 catches, but he averaged 25.4 yards per reception. Every time he caught a ball, it was over 25 yards downfield, which was number 1 in the NCAA by far. He's just a bigger, better version of Trey Tucker, basically. He's a little bit of a project for sure. I think he can separate versus man coverage. He could obviously stack defenders on the outside, and like you have 4.30 speed, you're able to spread the field. And I think this is good news for guys in particular. Like, I'm not really drafting DT with any sort of interest. Like, Jack Besh was drafted before him in this year's draft, 2nd round pick, and they probably want him to win the starting job. But what DT does is keep the defenses honest. When you're that big and you're that fast, like Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers are going to be able to move and be chess pieces all over the middle of the field. So I love what this opens up for them in particular. What else we got here? We got some hype on Tank Bigsby. He was a guy that I was pretty on early in the spring. I think my take on Jacksonville is like, if any of these guys starts going within the top like 100 ADP, I'm likely out. I'm just fading like the overconfidence of the market in knowing who the starter is in this backfield. It's been like Travis Etienne was like the clear one all spring, which never felt like a good stance to take in this backfield. Tank was easily the most efficient runner on the ground. You have Liam Cohen, who deployed a running back by committee. Bashal Tutun, everybody loved him as a 4th round pick. I think he's fun, but he's got fumbling issues. It doesn't seem like he's really getting any reps with the starters. He feels like a little bit more of like a developmental guy, which makes sense because Tank and Etienne are both veterans right now. I think Tutun, if Jacksonville feels like Etienne is kind of like past his prime and they're like, we don't really like this guy, Tutun is next up in like a perfect replacement given pass catching ability, size, explosiveness, speed. Like the dude can absolutely fire himself out of a rocket. But Tank is the one right now apparently like getting most of the shine at the running back position. His pass catching upside, definitely not there. We'll probably get goal line work, but like if I'm taking one, like all else equal, you allow me to take one of them on my team, it's going to be Tank. But again, my overall take on the situation is I'm just going to fade overconfidence from the market, thinking they know how to predict who's going to be the guy that comes out. And there's always like the 30% chance that no one is good enough consistently that you want him on the team. Even if at the end of the year, like Tank scores 6 touchdowns, rushes for 950, like that might come in the, most of his production might come in the course of like 4 to 5 games when you didn't even know where to start him. So it's a messy situation overall out there. One situation that is just not messy is Emeka Egbuka. I've been on that train all summer. He was someone that, I hope you were drafting a ton of in best ball. I don't think there's a guy who's gotten more hype out of training camp than Emeka Egbuka, the 1st round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming in to like replace Chris Godwin as an insurance policy. But like, I really wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, Egbuka is like the target leader, if he has the highest target share from weeks 8 through 17. Mike Evans is getting older, obviously. And listen, Mike Evans was great last year, but if you look at the numbers, the splits between Mike Evans played with Chris Godwin and when Chris Godwin was out, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 20 in fantasy points per game when Godwin was there. Wide receiver 5 when Godwin wasn't there. So I get it. Like Evans is coming off another 1,000-yard year and he's a good receiver, obviously still. But like, I don't want to gas up Mike Evans to the point where we are becoming disillusioned about what's happening. There was the picture that surfaced about Chris Godwin's ankle. He had a second ankle surgery that I don't think a lot of people knew about and was not planned. It's not a typical progression of the way that his injury occurred. Like, you're not supposed to have that second surgery, which like has put concern into the fantasy community, and I think rightfully so. He's not at training camp right now. He's been placed on the PUP to start. Doesn't mean he can't come off of it, but I think there's a real chance that he could start the regular season on the PUP and miss those first 4 games. And once you take Egbuka out the bottle, man, we're drunk on it, all right? There's no putting him back in there. So Egbuka has been my favorite like 10th, 11th round pick, and I think he's going to continue to move up draft boards. And if I look at my rankings right now, this is actually crazy. I have Godwin at wide receiver 43 and Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver 44. They are back-to-back in my rankings. All the vibes about Chris Godwin are horrendous. And honestly, if I'm in a draft right now and it's like the 8th, 9th round and I'm choosing between the two, I don't know that I'm taking Godwin over Egbuka. He's going to be a GOAT. And lastly, while we're on the topic of GOATs, Let's talk about Anthony Richardson, man. All spring, it was believed that he was going to miss the large majority of training camp. He missed OTAs. He missed those like voluntary practices, but he was on the field and ready to go at the start of training camp. So while it looked like Daniel Jones was just going to take over and be the starter for week 1, that was like the reports out of there where like, yeah, he's going to have all this time to rep with the ones, and it's going to be an uphill battle for Anthony Richardson to get play time. They started same day in training camp. And I think if all else is equal, with no missed time from A-Rich throughout training camp, I think there's a really, really strong chance he is the week 1 starter. And listen, I know A-Rich has been bad, but like at this point in fantasy, he is the perfect QB3 to draft in a super flex league. He is the perfect guy. Like his ADP is quarterback 26 or 27. I get it. There's a really good chance I think both of them start. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson both start, 8 games this year or something like that. But it felt more like Daniel Jones was going to win the week 1 starting job, and he would have to legitimately go out and lose it to A-Rich for A-Rich to start more than like 6 games this year. If I had to predict right now, I would say Anthony Richardson wins the starting job because the Colts want him to win the starting job, obviously. I'm still leaving the light on, man. I'm still leaving the light on for Anthony Richardson. He is a target of mine right now in Superflex and even one quarterback leagues. Like if you go with, if you go with like a Caleb Williams shooting for upside with your QB1 and like shit falls flat with the Bears and then you have A-Rich behind him, like that's a great fantasy backup guy to have because as bad as he is on the field, he's phenomenal in your fantasy lineups no matter which way you look at it. So those are a bunch of guys that we are buying the storylines of, buying the hype of. I would just say if there's one storyline I'm not buying the hype of, it's Kyle Pitts. Yeah, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that shit. You guys actually make me sick to my stomach. People drafting Kyle Pitts. So we're going to end it there. We're going to start up our rankings videos again. As I've told y'all, at the beginning of every month, we're going to do an updated rankings video where we go through our top 36 receivers, top 36 running backs. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you want to watch those. But again, you can get all my rankings, like the top 200 flex rankings, super flex rankings, tight end premium, all that good stuff in the draft guide going live tomorrow. If you're watching this on August 1st or after that, then it already is live. You can go get it at bdge.co for full price, but very, very discounted through our partner offer down below. First link. I love y'all. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful weekend. Stay hydrated. Put some sunscreen on. Smoochies.